What's up everyone, welcome back to another What If video. So as you can probably tell by the title, today's video is going to be somewhat of an odd topic, but something that could have definitely happened. Now Tarble's been around for a while, but not a lot has been done with him. I mean, the concept of Vegeta having a brother being somewhere in the universe, it seems like kind of a big thing to ignore. And I was wondering, with all these possibilities, there might be a way to make a good what if idea about him. Now there are a ton of what ifs about Saiyans being sent to different planets from where they were originally sent to. Or in the case of one of my videos, having different circumstances for their birth, like being born as twins alongside a brother. So I wanted to try and apply that same concept to Tarble, seeing what could happen if maybe, instead of being sent somewhere off planet because he's weak, if he was sent to be raised by Vegeta instead. Also, be sure to drop a like on this video and let's try and hit a like goal of 2,500 likes, and if we hit that, I can continue this what if because I'll know that there's enough interest in it. So let's begin discussing what would happen if Vegeta raised Tarble. So this all starts way in the days of Dragon Ball Minus, I guess. King Vegeta steals Bardock's move and tries to send his baby away somewhere else. So we don't really know too much about Tarble's backstory, but we do know that King Vegeta sent him somewhere else because he was a little too weak to be a good Saiyan. So let's take that concept and reverse that a little. While Vegeta's first son, also named Vegeta, had a really good power level and seemed to have a lot of promise, it seems like Tarble, his second son, doesn't really live up to that potential. Even as the son of an elite warrior, as a child it seems Tarble is nothing like his brother. Well, at least not right now. Vegeta is currently off planet with Nappa and Raditz, and he's acting as a formidable Saiyan warrior and making very good progress. That gets King Vegeta thinking, maybe if he sent Tarble to where Vegeta is, he could grow up to be a much stronger warrior, and he wouldn't be as passive as he seems. King Vegeta sends a transmission to his son's group, saying they'll have a new member joining them that they should whip into shape. They of course know that it's Vegeta's younger brother Tarble. The space pod lands where they are, and essentially now they're made into babysitters. Well, really Nappa is. Now he has 3 kids to look after. And also not too long after this, Planet Vegeta does explode, so Tarble's stuck with them now. No longer as a temporary thing, but as a full-time member of the group, even though he's a little kid right now. Tarble grows up alongside Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa over the next few years and decades. While Tarble is a little bit weak, Vegeta does have a soft spot for him because he is an elite Saiyan by birth. And also, seemingly as the last few Saiyans there, this group is really the only people that Vegeta bonds with, so Tarble's personality will be completely warped here. I feel like he'd be kind of a mix of Vegeta and Raditz because he grew up alongside them. While he is a bit more analytical than the other two, of course he displays that sense of Saiyan pride that the whole group upholds. As for his strength, he'd most likely be one of the weaker members of the group, possibly around Raditz's level, although it's kinda hard to speculate where he'd be at this point. Despite him being weak relative to the rest of the group, I mean he's a Saiyan warrior after all, so of course he's feared everywhere. The group works under Frieza like normal, but secretly, they decide that they do want to rebel a bit, and try and recruit more members for their team. It turns out that Raditz actually has a brother on Earth named Kakarot, and he might make for a great player on the team if they're able to recruit him. So, Raditz goes on his mission to recruit Kakarot, and it's a huge failure. Somehow he died. Oh, and Kakarot did, but apparently there's something on Earth called Dragon Balls and they're going to be used to revive Kakarot, so he will be back in a year's time. So Vegeta plans on heading there alongside Nappa, but looks out for Tarble and decides that he wants him to stay behind. They tell Tarble it's because they feel like they can handle it alone, but frankly, Vegeta feels that Tarble is a bit too weak. He doesn't outright say this, but deep down, Tarble knows that this is why his brother wanted him to stay behind. Vegeta does feel a little bad about it, but he can't dwell on it too much. Tarble is kind of a weak link right now. Well, at least Nappa thinks so. On their journey to Earth, Vegeta begins wondering, with all this stuff heating up around space, how is Tarble going to make it? A little bit disheartened by being left behind, instead of going into a depression about it, Tarble decides that this is going to actually help motivate him. He's been taking it kind of easy as Vegeta's been heading a lot of the missions. Even if he was genetically disadvantaged and born weaker, maybe if he works hard, he'll be able to impress his brother. Right now, Vegeta sadly does feel like Tarble's a little bit of dead weight, but he doesn't want it to be that way. But he can't help but feel disappointed. Maybe it's for the best that he didn't come to Earth because he probably would have died. If Raditz did, well, Tarble probably wouldn't have made it either. In that year that Vegeta and Nappa take to go to Earth, Tarble begins training more and more on his own. This was the straw that broke the camel's back and actually encouraged him to train harder, making him realize that everything he's been doing so far still wasn't enough. And apparently that Kakarot guy on Earth was pretty weak and he still was able to kill Raditz. So maybe if a low-class warrior can get that strong, he definitely can as well with hard work. As well as training, he picks up more missions from Frieza, not only to gain more trust within the Frieza Force, but also as more experience for him. This purposely puts him in danger, which means he'll be able to exploit his Zenkais a little bit, even though it is painful. But even though it might not be ideal, at least he knows it'll work. The power boost he gets, the experience he gets, and all the training he gets from these missions, as well as everything he does when he trains alone, it all helps him get stronger. This will be the last time he's looked down upon. He has to have a mindset more like his older brother. And while Vegeta did say he could handle this mission, it turns out he couldn't. A year later, Vegeta's back on planet 79 in terrible condition, and is immediately placed in a healing pod. While he did escape barely, Nappa died, so it was kind of a big loss. After some time, Vegeta exits his healing chamber, and is surprised to be greeted by Tarble. He doesn't want to talk about the mission, but as soon as he's out of the healing chamber, he notices something different about his brother. The way he carries himself, it's different from before. He seems noticeably stronger, also even scarred up a bit, and this tells Vegeta everything he needs to know. He's actually pretty impressed. He's glad to know that Tarble hasn't been slacking off this past year. He became a lot more independent and improved himself a ton. Tarble was never some insane prodigy like Vegeta was as a kid. He had to work much harder, and his injuries show this. And the great thing is that he still has his tail, unlike Vegeta. These two are the last Saiyans remaining. Well, excluding Kakarot and Gohan because they're not evil. And I guess Broly and Paragus too, but they don't know they exist. Yada yada, I'm kinda getting off course. They think they're the last two Saiyans, even if it might not be the right assumption. The two of them begin conversing. They recognize this fact, and they're encouraged to get revenge on Frieza right now, as the last two fighters of their race. Vegeta has a plan. By using the Dragon Balls, he wants to make them both immortal. But how is he going to do that if he's not on Earth anymore? Tarble asks this, and then Vegeta gives him an answer. They're taking a trip to Namek. The two set course for the planet and head off, almost immediately after Vegeta is healed. But of course, they're not going to be alone. Far from it. They land on the planet and they start their search, but soon after, they notice a bunch of other ships landing. Wait, Frieza's army is here too? How do they find out about this? The two are angered, but they feel like it's nothing they can't handle. They make their way throughout Namek, fighting some fodder Frieza soldiers, taking on people like Kui, and luckily enough for them, they actually get a few Dragon Balls. The two feel very happy right now. Even with Frieza here, they might actually be able to make it out of this. However, on another part of the planet, a group of Earthlings land on the planet. Of course, I'm referring to Krillin, Gohan, and Bulma. Krillin and Gohan are pretty concerned right now because immediately, they sense Vegeta is here alongside someone else. Oh, and also that huge army that's here too. So it seems like they're not the only ones on Namek. But their mission continues pretty much like normal at first. They encounter Dodoria, they meet Dende, and after escaping from Dodoria, they head to Guru's. Considering the threat of another Saiyan on this planet, alongside a stronger Vegeta and that entire army, they decide they're all going to stick together to remain safe. So Gohan, Krillin, and Dende all head to Guru's at once, leaving Dodoria to be picked on by Vegeta and Tarble. Dodoria is not too scared to fight them. He thinks the two are weaklings, especially Tarble, but clearly, he doesn't know what's happened with them in the past year. This battle between him and the Saiyan brothers goes pretty quickly, and in order to try and save himself, he tells them about what truly happened to Planet Vegeta. And while this information was something that Vegeta and Tarble didn't know before, all it really does is serve to piss them off. With a dual Gallic gun, they kill Dodoria. This only fuels the fire of their anger, as well as their motivation to defeat Frieza. They'll have to get those Dragon Balls at any cost. Frieza is the sole person responsible for everything that's happened in their life. Their planet, the Saiyans, all their power, taken away by Frieza. But after encountering Dodoria, there is something else that they want to chase after. They noticed that Dodoria was already kind of winded when they fought him, as well as detecting two powers that were flying away from Dodoria, almost as if he was chasing them. What target could be so valuable that Dodoria had to chase them down? They decide to investigate, but it seems their keys have completely disappeared now. They could try and fly off in the general direction that the group headed off to, but for all they know it might just be a waste of time. So out of luck here, they decide to just search more villages, and they are able to get one more Dragon Ball. Right now, they're at a total of 3. But, of course, they're not going to go undetected. Eventually, they encounter Zarbon too. Immediately, he incapacitates Tarble, trying to make the fight more fair so he only has to face Vegeta now. Zarbon makes some quick work of Vegeta, beating him senseless and even knocking him out. He then turns around to pick up Tarble so he can take the two of them back to Frieza's ship, but when he looks back, Tarble's gone. And then he sees something up in the sky, a giant glowing ball. Tarble eventually then comes back into view, although this time as a great ape. Although heavily injured and a little bit weakened from creating the artificial moon, right now there's a massive gap in power between him and Zarbon. Zarbon even goes into his ugly form, but it does absolutely nothing. Scared out of his mind, he's eventually stepped on by a giant Tarble, who used the last of his energy to crush Zarbon and finish him off for good, as he then passes out and reverts to normal, having been severely injured beforehand. Detecting all this commotion on his scouter, and seeing a great ape in the distance, Frieza obviously decides to check this out. He's disgusted that Zarbon couldn't handle these two by himself, and when he arrives, he sees the two passed out Saiyans and a Zarbon pancake. A little bit disgusting, but whatever. He drags the two Saiyans to his ship to heal them so he can get all the info he needs out of them. They clearly have info on the Dragon Balls and possibly have some hidden somewhere. With the battle being a bit tense, their armor got pretty messed up, especially Tarble, who was nearly killed. So once they wake up from their healing, they also have new armor on, which they're pretty surprised about. Really, just my excuse to give Tarble a newer look. Also kinda weird, Frieza took the time to clothe them. Ew. They also feel like they're much stronger than before, with Tarble even getting a massive boost greater than his brothers, due to his worse injuries. Gradually, he's closing the gap in power, both intentionally and unintentionally like in this case. The two share a grin, realizing that right now is the perfect opportunity to steal a Dragon Ball and escape. Plus, they're pretty happy with their new power. They create a diversion and steal Frieza's Dragon Balls. It seems like he and his group were able to gather 3 of them here, blowing a hole in the ship, distracting Frieza, and taking the Dragon Balls. They speed off undetected by the Space Emperor. They head back to the lake where they hid their other Dragon Balls, and now, it seems like they'll have 6 total. They're so close, they only need 1 more Dragon Ball. They arrive at the lake where the other Dragon Balls should be, and the 3 of them are missing. What? Vegeta gets unrationally angry. And of course Tarble's pretty pissed too, but he tries to come up with a plan. It definitely wasn't the Frieza Force that took the Dragon Balls, so it might have been whoever Dodoria was chasing before. They focus, and eventually they sense 3 different powers, all very faint, but they're flying directly away from the lake. They miss this group by mere minutes. As he's developing his ability to sense ki more and more, Vegeta somewhat recognizes these ki signatures. No, it can't be. Can these actually be some fighters from Earth? Of course, this was Krillin, Gohan, and Dende, all of whom stole the Dragon Balls, after having their potential unlocked by Guru. Right now, they're heading back to Bulma to store these, as well as the one that they actually got from Guru himself. Meanwhile, in space, Goku gets ever so closer to Namek, and all the while, Frieza has some plans of his own, and decides to call for some more useful help. All of this saga is coming together quickly. Frieza has made the choice to summon the Ginyu Force, and while Goku heads towards the planet, they're getting closer too. Back to the brothers, the two decide to split up for now. Vegeta decides he's going to guard the Dragon Balls that they just stole, and Tarble decides that he's going to go and pursue the Earthlings, not knowing how strong they are right now. Tarble eventually is successful, and he encounters Gohan and Krillin, who are pretty confused to see who he is. This Saiyan looks very similar to Vegeta, and then they find out that he's actually Vegeta's brother. So it seems there was one more Saiyan that they didn't know about. But no matter, they're not too concerned. Tarble is ready to fight them, and they're prepared as well, feeling like they outclass him even individually. Right as the fight is about to begin, they're interrupted when they sense powers coming to Namek. It's the Ginyu Force. Tarble immediately knows who these guys are, and just as soon as they land, they're heading closer and closer to the group, having sensed the recent surge in ki. Although Tarble would love to beat up these guys right now, it seems they've been forced into an enemy of my enemy situation, and eventually, they're tracked down by the Ginyu Force. The Ginyu Force could just kill them right away, but they toy with this group a bit and get the Dragon Balls from them. But just as they're about to finish the job, everyone senses another power coming towards Namek, and the Ginyu Force turn on their scouters to see what's going on. Another ship has just landed, and an individual is coming closer and closer to this group. Of course, this is Goku, who's finally landed on the planet. While this group did get beat up a little by the Ginyu Force, thankfully Goku's there to save them. Krillin, Gohan, and Tarble take on Goldo together, while Goku takes on Jason Birder, and having the whole body swap debacle with the Ginyu. Thankfully though, this is restored, and since Dende is there, he's able to get healed up right away, as well as the rest of the group. Dende is very hesitant to heal Tarble, but he doesn't seem to be as vicious as Vegeta, and they kinda need the extra firepower right now anyways. So, he gets healed as well and gets a nice little boost from it, but not nearly as much as Goku's. But of course, they are very wary of Tarble. I mean, why wouldn't they be? Look at who he's aligned with. Another good thing that came out of the situation is that Goku gets to save his Senzu beams, just in case. It's great that they all had Dende there. But there is one loose end that they didn't tie up. Besides the fact that Frieza is still out there somewhere, Recoome was able to escape, and is currently heading off in Vegeta's direction, sensing his power and assuming that he might have Dragon Balls. After everyone's healed, Tarble focuses, and he's able to sense where Recoome's heading to. It's directly towards his brother. While he doesn't want to work with these Earthlings, it seems he's really not in a position of power here, so he has no choice but to make an appeal to them, because otherwise, Vegeta will probably die as well as him. At least this might give the two brothers a little bit of safety. Swallowing his pride, he asks for the group's help. But can they really trust Tarble? Should they even try and save Vegeta? This could be a trap for all they know, and they could get double-crossed in the end. Frieza can already tell that the Ginyu Force screwed up, so he decides he's going to take matters into his own hands. He puts on a scouter in order to search for any high power levels that he could find, and across the planet, he senses one that stands out to him. It definitely isn't someone from the Ginyu Force or his army, so he decides to pursue this mysterious power, thinking it might lead him to at least one Dragon Ball. The power he actually sensed was Nail, which had led him to Guru's place. We'll leave these two alone for a bit, and let's switch back over to Tarble to see what's up with them. After defeating most of the Ginyu Force, Recoome did leave and went after Vegeta. Since Tarble knows that Frieza's after everyone, he wanted to create a temporary alliance with the group that he was just fighting with, and his first objective is to fight Recoome and protect Vegeta. With little time to waste, Tarble immediately departs, and Goku's group follows close behind him. They're still not really sure if they want to trust this guy, but as I mentioned in the previous episode, they do see that he is a bit different from Vegeta, and given the situation they're in, it's probably wise to stick with as many people as possible. Tarble arrives and he sees Recoome about to attack Vegeta, and immediately, with one hit, he takes Recoome down. There actually was nothing to worry about. He was stronger than Recoome without even realizing it. He's pretty amazed with his strength. All the Zenkais he got up to this point, especially the one after fighting the Ginyu Force, really helped him grow stronger. He felt confident taking on Recoome, but he didn't know he could one-shot him. This amazement goes both ways because Vegeta sees this as well. He's a bit beat up by Recoome, and it's good that Tarble intervened when he did because Recoome was about to land the finishing blow. But more so, he's speechless by seeing Tarble's strength. He feels a mix of emotions: pride, jealousy, anger, sadness, all of these. He doesn't really know how to feel about Tarble surpassing him in terms of power. Goku's group then lands behind them, and Vegeta sees what's going on. He's asking why Tarble led them here, and Tarble explains that they all fought the Ginyu Force together, and he decided it would be a better idea if they stuck with more people. Vegeta's angered now, but he hears Tarble out, and now that they have Frieza after them, he's kinda right. They need as much power as they can get. And it's good timing too, because now they sense Frieza approaching. His fight with the Nail went pretty much as you'd expect, and after detecting a huge burst in power just now, of course he's gonna go check it out. This might be his answer, especially since now Recoome's off the radar. Reluctantly, Dende heals Vegeta, in preparation for Frieza's arrival. So where are we in terms of power levels right now? Well, let's cover that here. Goku is going to be at 3 million here. It's a good thing that they had Dende and he didn't have to wait to be healed in the healing pod. As for Tarble, he surprisingly got really strong, but it makes sense considering how close he's been to death this whole time. He's at a power of 1.5 million. Way behind him is Vegeta, who's at 400,000, which is still pretty impressive. Behind that is Gohan, who's around 200,000, with Krillin at 75,000. The main cast is pretty much normal, with Vegeta and Tarble being the only real changes here, because Vegeta's stronger and, well, Tarble was never here in the first place. Goku and friends convince Vegeta to hand over the Dragon Balls, saying that they'll call for support and find a way to defeat Frieza that way. Vegeta and Tarble aren't in a position of power here. To be fair, Tarble himself is decently strong, but they can't stand up to someone like Goku. Oh, excuse me, Kakarot. That's like their thing, calling him Kakarot. But yeah, they're not really in a position to say no here. Begrudgingly, they agree and they fly over to the other Dragon Balls, quickly summoning Porunga thanks to Dende's help. And this goes pretty much like you could expect. Piccolo was brought back to life and then teleported to Namek. And then, oh no, Guru dies, he just loves doing that. Too bad because Vegeta was about to wish for immortality for him and Tarble. Damn it, seems like they'll have to wait. Frieza is getting angrier and angrier. He just arrived at the spot where he detected that huge power boost, and there's nothing there. And by the time he got there, he sees in the distance that the sky turned black and there's a giant dragon in the sky. And that could really only mean one thing. While Porunga's still there, he rockets over towards that area, hoping not to miss them this time. And he finally catches up to them, just as Porunga disappears. They stole his wishes, and now he can't get them back. Angered, Frieza's in the mood to fight here. Immediately, he goes into his second form, and tells everyone he's just getting started. This is only a taste of his power. Meanwhile, on the other side of Namek, Piccolo is brought back, and he finds Nail nearly dead on the ground. His arrival on Namek goes pretty much like normal. He fuses with Nail and then immediately goes to find Frieza, because right now, he senses that Frieza's fighting with his friends. He needs to make haste because it looks like they're in trouble. Frieza's still in his second form, but of course he's not done yet. He turned into his third form, and everyone starts facing trouble. They're able to hold him off in his second form pretty easily, but now that he's in his third form, it's going to be a lot harder. Thankfully, by the time this happens, support arrives in the form of Piccolo, and now it's a 7v1 against Frieza. Goku, Tarble, and Piccolo fight as Krillin, Vegeta, and Gohan provide support, with Dende hiding away so he doesn't die, and he could stay there as a healer. Already this fight is seeming a lot more optimistic. Realizing that his third form isn't enough here, he decides to finally power up into his final form, and the group realizes that they can't risk it. They go full power. Goku shows off Kaioken times 20, Piccolo shows off his full power now that he's fused, and Tarble, well, he doesn't really have anything necessarily too special, but he's strong, so there's that. And the three of them all team up and hit Frieza with a massive combined beam, joined with some help from Vegeta, Gohan, and Krillin. Before he can even go into his final form, Frieza is defeated, knocked unconscious. This full power strike while he was mid-transformation was actually very helpful and smart. They realize that Frieza's still alive because of his insane survivability, and Goku kinda does want to spare him, but Tarble steps in towards the unconscious Frieza and eradicates him with a single beam. Damn, does it feel good to do that. It's a good thing that Goku and Tarble were here, and that they acted earlier to fight Frieza. By preventing him from going into his final form, it allowed them to defeat Frieza with a little bit of struggle, and for good this time. Alright, so now what? Kami wishes to revive every Namekian, and I know I've done a similar ending to Namek arcs in some of my other what-ifs, so I'm going to speed through this a little bit. With the wish to revive every Namekian, that means Porunga's back, and they get one wish, and instead of being selfish, they decide to restore all the damage done to Namek, so the planet is restored back to normal. Mori is actually made a Grand Elder before Guru dies, and Namek is now saved and everything's back to normal. Once Porunga is back, as a show of thanks, the Namekians will revive Tenshinhan, Yamcha, and Chaozu as a gift. At least once Porunga returns. So the Earthlings should expect to see them back in 3 months' time. And everyone boards Goku's ship and goes back to Earth. They bring Vegeta and Tarble along because they don't really know what else to do, and the two did help fight Frieza, so I guess they can kinda trust them now. The Namek arc had a surprisingly happy conclusion, but could we say the same about the other arcs going forward? Well, we'll see about that. Because there's already another feud about to start, and that's between Vegeta and Tarble. Seeing Tarble and Kakarot so strong, Vegeta is half impressed with his brother, but also half angered at himself, seeing that he isn't as strong as either of them. Not only that, but Tarble just shot past him. A feud is brewing with Vegeta, but instead of the normal Dragon Ball feud, it's something that's internal, something within Vegeta. He feels lost here. All of these conflicting emotions boil up inside of him, and eventually everyone gets back to Earth. Immediately, Vegeta goes into solitude, training intensely. The good thing is that Capsule Corp is a gravity training room, so 24/7, Vegeta is trying to go in there seeing if he could somehow break his limits. And with him at Capsule Corp so much, well, Vegeta and Bulma still happens. So a lot of this seems the same so far, doesn't it? Well, things are going to be changing as we go forward into the Androids arc. So stick with me here. Everyone is eventually revived as well, but Vegeta still keeps up with his training. Vegeta is focused on only one goal, catching up to his brother and Kakarot. I guess that's actually kind of 2 goals, but you know what I mean. Tarble does train occasionally and sometimes with Vegeta, but he notices that Vegeta's been acting very distant kinda. It's odd. He's definitely changed since that experience on Namek. Why is that though? He goes more and more into solitude, and eventually shuts pretty much everyone off besides Bulma. He feels like a failure, and he can't help but shake the feeling of uselessness. He wasn't an asset on Namek, he was a liability. The fight with Frieza especially, Vegeta was just on the sidelines watching Tarble, Piccolo, and Kakarot do their thing. It should have been him. His brother was a weakling, and he never deserved to be this strong. Kakarot's a low-class warrior. He shouldn't be this strong either. Has he been going about it wrong his whole life? Does the class of Saiyans that he's in really matter? One day during training, Capsule Corp begins shaking. Vegeta is in the gravity room, training just as hard as he was before, under many times higher than normal gravity. He keeps pushing himself farther and farther with the gravity, with his feelings of jealousy, rage, sadness, and uselessness finally boiling up, almost ready to burst. The entire area starts shaking, as Vegeta feels an explosion of power. Suddenly, the gravity in the chamber becomes a lot lighter. He could have sworn he was at a couple hundred times Earth gravity right now. Did the chamber just stop working? He feels lightweight, but then he realizes something. His power's overflowing. There's an aura around him that's different than before. He goes to turn off the gravity to see what's going on, but then he sees, as the red lights in the room turn off, in the reflection of the control panel that controls the gravity, Vegeta sees. His hair is golden. There's no way. Only one thing is in Vegeta's mind right now. The only conclusion that he could even jump to. Has he actually done it? Is this actually a Super Saiyan? Immediately the power goes away, but Vegeta remembers the feeling. All his motivation immediately comes back, his pride restored. And everyone rushes over to Capsule Corp after sending the surgeon key. Vegeta has finally reclaimed the throne, but he isn't sure how, and of course he has to try and access this power again. He slowly goes back into training with everyone else, with Kakarot and Tarble trying to figure out what he's done. They've been training this entire time too. Tarble's actually kind of become friends with Kakarot, since he never really had a bad experience with him like Vegeta did, and they've developed a friendly rivalry, but Vegeta's on a whole new level now. This Super Saiyan thing is intriguing. They're greeted by someone that they've never seen before. It's Trunks. He's a little bit confused. There's no Frieza or King Cold, so he decided to find the group and see what was going on. He keeps his identity secret, but he's here to give Goku the heart virus medicine and to warn everyone about the androids. But more surprising than Frieza and Cold not being there is the fact that there's this new guy here. He has to try really hard to not hide his astonishment when he finds out that this is Vegeta's brother. He has an uncle? Since when? He's never heard about this Tarble guy. Anyways, he shows off Super Saiyan to the group and prepares to fight Goku, thinking that he can do it as well. Goku's amazed to see that Trunks is a Super Saiyan, but he reveals that he doesn't know how to do Super Saiyan just yet. But he knows of the form and has been training towards it. Trunks is really confused. He knows by this time in the future Goku had Super Saiyan already. So why doesn't he have it here, and how does he know about it if he doesn't actually know how to use it? Vegeta then steps up and shows Trunks that he is the one who can go Super Saiyan right now. Trunks is noticing that there's a lot of changes here, some discrepancies in the timeline. Did he cause these by traveling back in time? Or maybe it was the fact that Tarble's here. He's not too sure, but things aren't looking good. But just to gauge everyone's power, he wants to have a fight with Vegeta. Vegeta obliges, going Super Saiyan as well. He still doesn't know who Trunks is at this point, but he's pretty impressed with his power. Trunks is equally surprised to see that Vegeta is as strong as he is right now, all of his confusion aside. They have a friendly sparring match and both enjoy it. And Trunks is glad that he had this opportunity. While he's not sure about the whole timelines thing right now, or about any discrepancies that he's noticed, he still promises to return in 3 years' time, wanting to make sure everything in this timeline is okay. He heads back to his time, but not before he tells Goku his true identity. Oh, and of course Piccolo hears this as well. Now, Trunks goes back home, and Vegeta turns to the group. If they need to prepare for these androids, they need to follow his lead. As the top dog around here, he's going to take initiative and show off his true power, hoping to whip everyone into shape. More Super Saiyans and stronger Earthlings. They just need to follow his lead. Just like old times, he feels like he's commanding the Saiyans once again, finally back to his former self. Being led by Vegeta, the three Saiyans all have a bit of a friendly competition right now. Vegeta knows for a fact that he's the top dog around here, and he's not as angsty as he usually is. He's a lot more cooperative, especially with Tarble around. But, knowing Vegeta, this is going to inflate his ego a lot. He's the Super Saiyan, the only one. Well, Trunks also is, but he ignores that because Trunks isn't from this timeline. As far as Vegeta is concerned, he's the only one. He essentially coaches the group, feeling like he's in charge around here. All the while, Goku and Tarble are trying to unlock this form themselves, with Goku also trying to train Gohan, as well as the other humans and Piccolo training too. Although Vegeta already has Super Saiyan, he's actually still motivated to train. He's not going to slack off just because he has it. It's become very clear to Vegeta, Tarble and Kakarot will access this form. It's only a matter of time, and Vegeta's not going to let them get the jump on him. He definitely still is training. And he wonders, is there a form above this? I guess he'll have to see for himself. Through enough training, Tarble is eventually able to go Super Saiyan, before Goku even, slowly but surely catching up to Vegeta once again. Their rivalry is still going strong. As the 3-year training continues, Goku eventually follows suit, getting Super Saiyan for himself, with Gohan and managing to actually get it by the end of the 3 years, only barely though. But Vegeta's actually found something pretty interesting. He's gone above Super Saiyan, and once the androids attack a few years later, he's about to show it off. They all head into the city searching for the androids, and they find Android 19 and 20 there. So these must be the 2 androids that Trunks was talking about. They seem like weaklings. Android 19 steps up to fight first, with Tarble being the one to take him on. Tarble has some issues at first because Android 19 is stealing his energy, but Tarble's not stupid. He can figure out a workaround pretty easily, and in terms of raw power, he's able to defeat Android 19. Gero is concerned and wants to escape, but Vegeta stops him. Yes, Tarble, Kakarot, and even Kakarot's son have Super Saiyan, and Tarble and Super Saiyan was enough for 19. He lets Gero in on a little secret. He's stronger than Tarble at the moment, and he knows something above Super Saiyan. He begins powering up, growing in both power and muscle. He calls this form of his Super Vegeta, and against someone like Gero at this point in the story, it's kinda overkill. He's not as strong as the Super Vegeta we see later on in the original series, because he didn't have the time chamber training, but regardless he's still really powerful, and too quick for Gero to escape from. With ease, he takes out the android. Problem solved then, right? It seems like everything's going good, and they can just wait for Trunks to show up. And then, Goku collapses, clutching his chest. Oh crap, they forgot about the heart virus. Well, the androids are defeated and they have the medicine for him, so they're assuming everything's all good anyways. They just need to take Goku home. As Gohan and Yamcha leave with Goku, Trunks then shows up and sees the remains of Android 19 and 20. These definitely aren't the androids from his timeline. I mean, just from those weird clothes he could tell. Those are some really weird outfits. It's good that they defeated these androids, but Trunks is still concerned. Why are there 2 other androids here? Where's 17 and 18? It doesn't take too long for them to figure out that Dr. Gero, Android 20, actually has a secret lab somewhere, thanks to Bulma's help. So they're going to track that down and hopefully that gives them some info. The search begins and it takes some time, but eventually the group does stumble upon the lab. And while Trunks was a bit nervous before, he's calmed down now because he sees the androids haven't been activated yet. Perfect. I mean, the group could have just tried to find the lab and destroy the androids before so they wouldn't have to even worry about it, but you know what, this is fine too. They could still destroy them here before they're activated. They look around the lab and find some blueprints and other things, as Vegeta, Trunks, and Tarble blow up the pods for 17 and 18, as well as one marked 16. But from another part of the lab, Krillin screams for them to come here. He's found something kinda concerning. Another project at Jiro is called Cell. It definitely isn't complete yet, but still. Does this mean one of these exists in Trunks' timeline too? It's some sort of ultimate android, possibly stronger than any other androids they've seen so far. Without hesitation, they destroy it. And it's good that Trunks at least found out about this. So by now he's realized this isn't the same timeline that he's from, it's another one that he traveled to. So whatever he does here won't affect his timeline. They thank him for his help, but now Trunks is kind of in a weird spot. How is he supposed to go back to his timeline and defeat the androids? Well, they have a few solutions. Since Goku is still unconscious and can't tell everyone about the Room of Spirited Time, Vegeta and Tarble decide to train Trunks up. They could do some gravity training, and on his way back they'll give some Senzu beans to him. But he's gonna have to do some really rigorous training if he wants to get strong enough in time to go back. So they begin going at it. And this is a nice opportunity for Trunks to actually get to know Tarble. And this gets Trunks thinking, is Tarble alive in the future timeline as well? Vegeta doesn't really want to get his hopes up, and he tells Trunks that Tarble could have died on planet Vegeta. But there is another possibility. He doesn't know how his father went about it in the future timeline, but Vegeta knows that his father was about to send Tarble somewhere else. So although he wasn't raised by Vegeta in that timeline, he could still be alive somewhere in space, but it would be really hard to find him. It's kind of a bummer for Trunks, but he'll keep it in mind. Tarble and Trunks warm up to each other. It's cool for Trunks to find out that he has a new family member, and he's pretty strong too and seems to be a good influence on Vegeta. About a week or two passes, and Trunks gotten a bit stronger but not too much. Gravity training for 2 weeks can only get you so far, even if he's injured in the training and getting some Zenkais. They'd rather be safe than sorry, so just in case, Bulma's gathered some data on the androids and created a self-destruct remote. Goku's also joined in the training by this point because he's already been cured, and he points out that Trunks has a noticeable increase in strength, even with the short training time. Trunks thanks his mom for the remote. He still does plan on fighting the androids because he feels that his strength might be enough to take on one of them at once. And if he could take out one, then he might be able to take out another at a later time. But it's good to have the remote as a fallback. In his timeline, he also has to try and find Cell before he's born. Hopefully it isn't too late. So Trunks returns to his timeline, thanking everyone and saying goodbye. Knowing Trunks, he's usually one who'd rather be safe than sorry. And even though it might feel like kind of a hollow victory, he ultimately decides he doesn't want to risk it and decides to just blow up the androids right there. This is the best outcome for him, just because it's guaranteed to work. He's also eventually able to hunt down Cell. By this point he might have already hatched, but it was probably so recent that Cell is really weak at this point, but still tough enough to face Trunks. And with that, he kills Cell. His timeline's finally safe, but there is one loose end, something that no one thought of. Yeah, Cell's dead in the present timeline and the future timeline, but there's another Cell, the Cell that we all know, the one that came from another timeline in order to get the androids. He's still around in the present timeline. He's been watching and his plans have been ruined. Still imperfect, he lurks about, not attacking now. The androids are dead, he has no escape back to his main timeline, and as of now he might not be strong enough, so he remains undercover, slowly absorbing people and animals that he finds. And over the 7-year time skip, Cell actually grows pretty strong. No one even knows he's here yet, and the thing is, he might not be able to achieve perfection, but over the course of years, absorbing people and animals will slowly boost his power. He remains dormant, still looking for the right time to strike, but eventually he's approached by someone. He doesn't know how he's been found, but this person promises that he's here for a partnership. He has an offer for Cell. The man introduces himself, a magician named Babidi, with an ally named Deborah. Babidi wants Cell to work with him, a servant of sorts, and in exchange, he can give Cell some great power. Cell's pretty iffy on this. The prospect of more power sounds cool, but he doesn't know if he can trust these guys. But during the conversation, Babidi reads Cell's mind, looking for what he desires. Perfection. Apparently he's programmed to have some sort of new transformation, but something is preventing him from getting it. Oh, so it's all mechanical nonsense. How primitive. That's nothing a little magic can't fix. So Babidi actually makes another offer. Alongside this power, he'll let Cell get his perfect form. Cell's surprised. He doesn't know how that's possible, but Babidi explains. Using magic, he can modify Cell and manifest the parts that he needs to become perfect. I mean, it's programmed within him, right? That seems like easy work for Babidi. Cell doesn't really want to oppose because this Deborah guy seems a little intimidating. And he has this offer of more power and his perfection, so a little reluctantly, he agrees. Over the 7 years, the Saiyans train and try and go above Super Saiyan. Following Vegeta's footsteps, They eventually are able to get Super Saiyan 2, although it takes a while for them to get it. Goten and Trunks are also born in this timeline, and Tarble remains single for now. If you have any suggestions for what you want to do with him, let me know in the comments below, but for the time being he's going to remain single. And with Goku still around, Gohan even continues his training. Vegeta's still ahead of everyone, but Gohan's actually catching up really quick. Just as Vegeta theorized, a hybrid Saiyan can grow a lot stronger, in less time, and it seems that's true, although no one's nearly as strong as they are in the original story. Without that Cell Saga training that they got originally, combined with the fact that they didn't find out Super Saiyan 2 until later on, they're a little behind. But the world's at peace right now, and even better, a tournament's coming up. It seems like a great opportunity for everyone, so they decide to join up. As for the roster this time around, a lot of the tournament remains the same, but there are a few changes. Spopovich and Yamu are there, but they're not possessed, they're actually normal fighters. And as for Shin and Kibito, they actually don't enter the tournament. They're spectating, trying to remain undercover. I mean, it's kinda hard when they look the way they do, but they try to remain stealthy. Without Spopovich and Yamu there, they don't know who the Majin servant is that's gonna try and steal energy. But they know that Babidi is planning to steal someone's energy here. Yamu replaces Kibito, and Tarble replaces Shin, and Spopovich replaces Spopovich. He's not going to be a psychopath this time. And thankfully enough, the tournament actually goes pretty smoothly. Someone is lurking about though, and they're waiting to strike at the right point. One of the first huge battles is Vegeta versus Goku, and as I've mentioned already in this part, Vegeta's the top dog around here. So he's probably going to win this fight, although it's going to be a very hard fought battle. And this is pretty early on in the tournament too. There's still some crazy fights ahead. One of the next crazy fights is Gohan, who's facing off against Tarble. And even though Gohan's pretty strong, Tarble is too. And this would be a really, and I mean really close battle. I feel like Gohan might have the advantage in power, but Tarble might have the advantage in terms of skill. And that might edge the fight in the favor of Tarble. It's really close, but Tarble takes the win. And that eventually leads to the finals of the tournament. Sadly, Mr. Satan didn't get too far because he had some sort of stomachache. So the final matchup is between Tarble and Vegeta, a battle between siblings. Both are waiting to see which brother is better. They pace themselves, starting base, eventually going to Super Saiyan and then Super Saiyan 2. Vegeta's really impressed. He has a clear advantage in power, but Tarble's still holding his own pretty well. While before he was a little jealous of his brother, he's mostly just impressed now and feeling proud about him. They've both come such a long way, and what better way to celebrate than an all-out fight? The two enjoy themselves. But then in the middle of the fight, Vegeta feels a sharp pain in his back, and immediately drops into base. Tarble's terrified, wondering what's happened, and they see behind Vegeta a long green tail stretching out, almost looking like a hose stretched along the ground. Within a split second, it jumped up in the air and stabbed Vegeta. Who did that? Shin and Kibito rush over to help, quickly introducing themselves. Tarble looks around for whoever just did that, while Vegeta gets healed. Not too long after, Goku points out someone leaving, and he's sensing this guy's energy. What is this? He senses Vegeta, Frieza, Piccolo, even himself. Plus thousands, no, tens of thousands of other energies screaming out. This is no normal opponent. Tarble is fuming as Vegeta is healed, and chases after Cell. Shin and Kibito want everyone to wait, but since Tarble's already leaving, Goku and Vegeta follow suit, alongside Gohan, Piccolo, and Krillin. So Shin and Kibito follow along. They arrive, and see the guy from the tournament, talking to 3 other people, Babidi, Deborah, and Pui Pui. Deborah points out that the group from the tournament followed them, and is about to strike, but Cell says that he wants to take over. He gives Babidi his energy, and then turns around, looking directly at the group. The group then makes out his face. From looks alone, this guy is terrifying, but then they begin to recognize him. From those blueprints that they found at the lab, Krillin points out, is that Cell? They killed him though, how could he get here? And something's not right either. On his forehead, he has the letter M. But one thing's not done yet. He turns back to Babidi, and says now that he held up his end of the deal, he wants what he was promised. That's easy enough. Babidi works his magic, literally, and Cell begins transforming. Even he and Deborah are a little scared at his new power. Cell immediately begins changing, even going past his semi-perfect form. Suspend your disbelief here, I don't really know if Babidi could do something like this, but it seems likely. Magic and Dragon Ball could do a lot of crazy things. Having it modify technology like Cell might not be that hard. The group watches in awe, as Cell's new form is revealed. Welcome to the Majin Cell saga. With Cell now ready to fight, Pui Pui and Deborah head into the ship. They may not even need to fight anybody. Cell not only feels confident right now, but he's happy. After so long, he's finally attained perfection. Plus, he's a Majin now and has that power boost from that. Babidi commands him, telling him to attack. Cell looks back and grins. Well, Babidi said so he'll do it. Almost instantaneously, he attacks Babidi, and with a single swipe of his tail, Babidi is killed. This whole time, Cell has used Babidi, he had the foresight and intelligence for this. What, did you really think he was going to sit back and let this happen to him, being a slave to Babidi and Dabura? No, this is Cell we're talking about. Dabura and Pui then watch in fear, as Cell aims a blast towards them, leaving the two gravely injured. So now, Cell could focus on its main target, Goku and all the other Saiyans with him. Even with his new power, they may be able to give him a good fight. And you know what? Maybe if he's looking for some fun later, that Boo guy sounds interesting. He remembers Babidi and Dabura rambling about that guy. This fight against the Saiyans and their friends might be a little too easy. So, if worse comes to worse and he kills them too quickly, Cell will just revive Boo himself. He does want a fun fight after all. All he wants is to grow stronger and prove his perfection. A pretty simple goal, really. The group attempts to face Cell. He's strong, but not incredibly overpowered. Like, I wouldn't say he's necessarily Boo level, but he's probably nearing on that level because of his training and the Majin curse that he has. He definitely would be above where Super Perfect Cell was, probably by a considerable amount. So the group tries to fight him, but they're not really able to accomplish too much. Of course, his regeneration is a bit of an issue, combined with his massive strength. But mid-fight, Cell realizes something. Why kill these guys? Why not use them? So, during the fight, he extends his tail out towards Vegeta, but he dodges in a split second. Vegeta realizes who's standing behind him, and tells Cell not to do it. But Cell's tail suddenly stops, and Vegeta slowly turns around, knowing what waits behind him. Goku, Gohan, and all the others look in horror as they see. Suspended in the air, they see Tarble being held up by Cell's tail, impaled directly in his chest. Cell absorbs all of Tarble's energy, with Tarble weakly saying Vegeta's name, as Cell drops him to the ground, now lifeless. Cell retracts his tail. That was a nice meal. Now, who's next? Vegeta looks frozen in time, trying to process it all. He goes completely pale, then falls to his knees. Cell watches. This is actually pretty funny, as Vegeta then screams, slamming his fist into the ground, forming a giant crater around him. Instantly, his aura explodes. It's enough to fling some of his allies backwards. Slowly, he stands up. His aura is incredibly tense, and he looks terrifying. His eyes are completely white. Lightning around him arcs and turns the sand into glass due to its sheer power, causing the ground to literally shatter around him as he stands up. In an instant, he launches towards Cell, punching right through his stomach. Cell is shocked. What is this? He recollects himself regenerating, and swings at Vegeta, hitting him square in the face, but Vegeta tanks the hit. As he gets angrier by the second, he gets stronger too. There's seemingly no end to his power in sight. He is completely berserk. He swings around, delivering a kick to Cell. Cell tries to block it, but it just snaps his arm off. He regenerates, quickly trying to prepare a Kamehameha, but Vegeta also prepares an attack. He launches a massive final flash towards Cell, screaming out as the two enter a desperate beam struggle. Cell is actually struggling here, as is Vegeta. Seeing this as an opportunity, everyone jumps in to help. And this is enough to turn the tides and seemingly destroy Cell, as his beam is overpowered and a crater is left behind, also creating a massive divot off into space where the beam went. Vegeta then powers down, depressed and feeling defeated. He couldn't save Tarble. Goku tells Vegeta they can gather the Dragon Balls right away, but it's just the principle of it. He was caught up in the heat of the moment and forgot, but still, even if they can revive Tarble, he'll remember this. It should have been him. As all his allies try reasoning with him and help cheering him up, Shin and Kibito watch, feeling a mix of terror and relief. Vegeta was somehow able to kill Cell, seemingly. They knew the Saiyans were strong, but what was this power-up? As everyone recollects themselves, Kibito walks up to the remains of the ship. Looking down, he then tells everyone to come over there. They're able to see directly towards the bottom of the ship. And down at that bottom floor, a half-dead Pui and Dabura are still moving. During this whole fight, they were able to get into the ship and monitor Boo's egg, and this fight actually ended up giving enough energy for Boo's revival. The two of them weakly laugh. Even without Babidi, it doesn't matter. They'll command Boo. A giant cloud of steam then erupts from the ship. As Boo then comes out of his egg, Pui and Dabura ask Boo to heal them, and he thinks for a second then smiles, as he proceeds to turn them both into cookies, eating them. The group doesn't know what to do now. Vegeta's power-up was helpful, but it seemed like it was temporary, maybe not something he can access at will. Boo then slowly floats up towards them, as weakly the group prepares to fight. But to make matters worse, they then see something. Far away, in the divot created by Vegeta's final flash, they see little specks coming together. They don't even believe what they're seeing. It's Cell. He's regenerating. Now this time without the M on his forehead. Stronger than before as well. He chuckles to himself. It seems he died and came back. Luckily he was able to make sure his core remained intact. And he looks over and sees, oh, that Boo guy was actually revived. He'll make for a nice snack. He seems strong but stupid. Cell tries to attack. The two begin fighting each other, as Shin curses and tells everyone to grab onto him. This may be bad, but it's also a chance to escape, so they take the opportunity, as Shin quickly brings everyone to the sacred world of Kai's, trying to come up with a plan so everyone can train. Vegeta is still distraught, and on top of that, there's people still on Earth that they want to save. But it seems he's finally calmed down, once again getting a grasp on reality, and he decides to take charge. He'll do whatever it takes to kill Buu, kill Cell, and revive Tarble. He doesn't care what it takes. It's weird. Goku and Gohan have never seen this side of Vegeta, same for the other fighters there. Shin then tells everyone about the Z-Sword. Maybe it would be a good idea if Vegeta tried to pull it out. He seems like he's the strongest one right now. So, Vegeta goes towards it and gets ready. Meanwhile on Earth, Cell is still set on absorbing Buu, while Buu is set on killing Cell. The two continue to fight, and it's a pretty long one at that. Cell is able to stab Buu here and there, gathering some energy, which lets him continuously regenerate without worrying about his stamina or anything. After Cell's boost in power, the two are very close to each other, with each fighter matching the other in strength, especially now that Cell has been able to steal some of Buu's energy. And not to mention, both of them can regenerate. This fight is not only a huge spectacle, but it's a very prolonged one. Both fighters are very stubborn. I mean, we all know how Buu is. So, just as Cell is set on stealing his energy, Buu slowly gets angrier as he doesn't reach his goal. Cell even notices during the battle. Extremely hot steam begins erupting from Buu's head. He grits his teeth and continues trying to fight Cell. In Buu's classic caveman speak, he tells Cell two words: Buu, angry. Cell just laughs at this. How childish. He can go all day, he doesn't care, as he then hits Buu with a powerful punch, grabbing his antenna and then swinging him around, flinging him to a nearby mountain. As long as he keeps chipping away at Buu's energy, it keeps him fueled up, and it helps Buu power down. It's a bit annoying and it's going to take a while, but Cell definitely feels like he can win this one. From the now destroyed mountain, Buu stands up, more steam emerges from him, and the ground begins to shake as he goes towards Cell, the area getting hotter and hotter from the steam. Buu is starting to get fed up, and suddenly, he erupts with a massive explosion, blowing himself up in an effort to kill Cell. He restrains himself though, wanting to keep Earth intact so he can get some more sweets. And from this explosion, he regenerates, as does Cell. But Cell is then surprised to see there's two Buus now. Buu's explosion was out of anger, and that created Evil Buu. Cell just looks in astonishment. This guy is really a weird fighter. But if there's two Buus, that means he could devise a plan. Buu hasn't noticed him yet as the two Buus are now fighting each other. So, Cell splits himself into two, sending his copy towards Good Buu. During the fight between Buus, Cell jumps out and stabs Good Buu, as Evil Buu watches in confusion. Good Buu falls to the ground as Cell launches towards Evil Buu next. But Evil Buu launches a candy beam that Cell narrowly dodges. Well, he better not push his luck. He uses a solar flare and gets out of there, trying to combine with his original self. And once the two cells are back together, they'll be enough to fight Evil Buu. But as Cell temporarily retreats, it seems that the candy beam hit Good Buu. And naturally, Evil Buu walks up towards him and eats Good Buu. Wow, how many times have I said Buu so far? As Cell's copy gets back to his original self, the two combine once more as he laughs. This is a lot of energy. But as he was absorbing Buu, he noticed that he felt something strange. Almost like there was something besides Buu that he was absorbing. No matter, he doesn't care about that now. Although he does feel a weird energy and a weird barrier within him, this definitely doesn't feel right. He feels stronger, definitely, but different. Something was added to him that wasn't supposed to be. As Cell tries to figure out what happened, he looks over and he sees Super Buu is formed. And Super Buu seems disappointed for some reason. When he absorbed Good Buu, he wasn't as strong as he thought. It seems that Cell had something to do with it. Little does Cell know, he just took something from Buu unexpectedly. When he was drinking Buu's energy, he accidentally absorbed the two Kais within Buu, Grand Supreme Kai and South Kai. These two guys, who influenced and empowered Buu before, are now having the same effect on Cell. Angry and grunting, Super Buu then sets his sights on Cell, wanting to achieve more power. As Cell ponders what happened to him, he gets ready to fight, as Super Buu lunges towards him. In the meantime, while this entire fight was happening, it seems there was some progress on the sacred world of Kai's. It did take a bit of time, but Vegeta was eventually able to pull out the Z-Sword after stressing himself. Thinking about Tarble allowed him to summon that anger from before, empowering him and helping him pull out the sword. As the other warriors train with Shin and Kibito, Vegeta practices with the Z-Sword, although it's clearly going to take some time to get used to. But with this, he may be able to defeat Buu, as well as Cell if he's still an issue. Let's say by this point, about an hour or so has passed. Given how matched Buu and Cell were, that seems reasonable. Not incredibly long, but not short either. And by now, Vegeta's already practicing with the Z-Sword. slowly getting stronger and getting the hang of handling it. He grew remarkably fast. And now it's time to actually test swinging it. He practiced wielding the thing, and now it might be good to test it out in combat. He channels his inner Trunks. If his future son can do it, then Vegeta can wield a sword too. It's time for a stress test. Shin decides he'll help out, as he creates a block of Kachin. He knows the Z-Sword is strong. It should be able to slice this in half with ease. And if not, well, Vegeta breaks his arm or something. He'll just heal it. Vegeta realizes the risk and doesn't care. He needs to know this will work against Buu. If it could slice this block in half, it should be good enough. So he flings it at Vegeta as Vegeta swings his sword. They hear a sharp crack, and everyone thinks it works, but they see the block of Kachin still flying, with Vegeta standing there holding half a sword. Did they just break the Z-Sword? Amidst their panic, they don't even realize that something was released from the Z-Sword. A strange old man dressed like a Kai. Amidst all the chaos, they didn't even realize this. Who is this mysterious man supposed to be? And more importantly, he looks like a Kai. Is there any way he can help them? The fight between Cell and Buu continues on Earth, as Elder Kai introduces himself to the group, hearing about what happened and saying that he may be able to help somehow. With Vegeta being the one to break the sword, Elder Kai decides he's going to perform his ritual on Vegeta. Oh, cool. Well, I guess that means Goku and Gohan will continue training together, and they'll see if Vegeta's power-up actually works. The good thing is, Cell and Buu still aren't done yet, not in the slightest, which means they have the time for this to happen. In about a day, Vegeta's potential will be drawn out and the ritual will be done. So, in the meantime, we could return to Earth. Cell begins hyperventilating. After escaping Buu, he's struggling to even stand. He feels wrong. Something in him doesn't feel right. It must have something to do with Buu's energy. Did he absorb too much? Is it not compatible with him? Are the magical properties bad? Cell can't tell. A million thoughts are racing through his head, and he doesn't know what's happening. He stumbles away to safety, needing to collect himself before he fights the Majin once more. In his head, he begins hearing voices, 2 of them in fact. As discussed last time, Cell absorbed the essence of those 2 Kais that were inside Buu, South Supreme Kai and the Grand Supreme Kai. These 2 Kais are the same ones that influenced Buu and kept him under control. But the thing is, it's a different case here. For Buu, he was basically uncontrollable and had no intelligence whatsoever, as we've seen with Kid Buu. But for Cell, it's different. He's much smarter and much more mentally sound. So it's not like the Kais are going to have an easy time controlling him. It's going to be a bit tough for them to get through to him, but with their combined essence and magic, it's enough to begin influencing the android at the very least. And this is why he begins hearing their voices in his head. Cell is literally losing control over his body and mind, struggling to keep control. It's almost as if he's conversing with himself in his mind. He has an inner dialogue of sorts. But eventually, this begins to balance out. Cell is able to retain control of himself. His mental fortitude is enough to keep the Kais out. But they keep trying, desperately trying to control Cell, or at least influence him somewhat. But it seems like it may not be enough. Although, there is somewhat of a change. While Cell retains most of his control, the Kais do get some sort of influence over him. Changes do begin to occur within Cell. And not only is it the Kais, but even a bit of Tarble is in there. It's just his DNA, but maybe it can be used by the Kais to influence him some more. Not to mention all the DNA of the other heroes inside him. As Cell gets more stable, Buu continues his rampage around Earth. He's looking for Cell, but also looking for some food and sweets. He goes around cities turning people into candy, looting every place of its food as well. It's the Buu we all know and love, going around turning innocent people into food and then eating them. What a great guy. About a day passes, Cell continues his existential crisis, while Buu continues eating people, and then Vegeta ends up arriving on Earth, much stronger than before. The ritual has been completed, and it's successful. He now has access to the ultimate form. While not a crazy boost like Gohan got in the main story, Vegeta definitely would have a lot of potential within him, and the power boost would be noticeable, enough to even fight Buu. Buu's surprised, but glad to see that one of the fighters is back. At least this will give him some fun. Vegeta's equally surprised. Buu looks different, and Buu wonders why Vegeta looks like he hasn't transformed. The two are both confused, but they can tell that the other is stronger. Of course, the two aren't going to exchange many words. Right away, they get to fighting. In Ultimate, Vegeta does have a clear advantage in power. A pretty big one at that. It catches Buu off guard a bit, but Buu has a plan. Instead of trying to fight Vegeta head on, he decides why not try to steal Vegeta's power instead. If he can find a way to absorb Vegeta, then he'll definitely win. No one will stop him then. Vegeta lands an attack that blows off one of Buu's arms, and he regenerates it. But this is good. He begins distracting Vegeta with candy beams, and while he shoots these beams, he uses detached pieces from himself to creep towards Vegeta. Buu then gives an evil grin as he fights. When Vegeta suddenly notices these pieces approaching from behind, Vegeta turns around and sees a wall of pink goo. He braces himself, ready to destroy it, but before it can connect, something ends up stopping it. Boo's surprised too. He can't control these pieces for some reason. They're not moving. He's then suddenly hit in the face by a massive blast. Vegeta has a false hope as he senses Tarble's energy, but then realizes why he does sense Tarble's energy. He sees Cell standing there, ready to help. He's confused and angered. Why is Cell helping, and why is he still alive? Cell can't explain right now, but he tells Vegeta to trust him. He's not the same Cell from before. They can settle this later. As the two converse, Boo lunges back towards them, and the two begin blocking the Majin's attacks. Cell prepares a Gallic gun and Vegeta does the same. They launch it together, destroying the Majin pretty easily. Boo tries to regenerate during the blast, but the two keep on firing. Eventually, every little bit of him is erased. Vegeta is relieved that they killed Boo, but he's still confused and a bit angry that Cell is there. And what is he doing? Cell begins explaining. He's not the same Cell anymore, not in the slightest. He tells Vegeta about the Kais inside him and how now he's somewhat going through a change, and it's not really over yet. He's much stronger and he's gained new abilities, as seen during the fight when he telekinetically held Boo's pieces in the air. He was strong enough to hold those back, not to mention strong enough to even help destroy Boo. But besides the new techniques and increase in power, the Kais now influence him somewhat. Cell's beginning to have a sort of epiphany. While the Kais influence him, Cell retains most of the control. In a way, this makes him more neutral if anything. He realizes that his perfection is an amazing gift, and he's better than pretty much everyone, and he realizes there's more to the universe than destroying stuff. He's not good, but he's not really evil. He's slowly progressing towards a point of neutrality, and he's kinda coming to terms with what he is now. Shin and everyone then teleport in, seeing that it's safe and having heard what happened. But what amazes Shin most is what Cell said, and Cell confirms, yes, two Kais are inside him, South Supreme Kai and Grand Supreme Kai, but it's not like he's gonna give them up somehow. No, these two are for him now. Again, he's not entirely a good guy. He still does retain some of Cell's evilness. And in terms of power right now, he and Ultimate Vegeta are kinda on par. The Zenkais that he got, as well as the power that he's absorbed, allowed him to get on Vegeta's level. He still does remain the most perfect being in the universe, at least by his own standards. So, what does he do now? Well, he's not gonna remain on Earth, no. He's gonna go off on his own, seeing if he can find some greater purpose in his life. But we'll get back to him later. The Dragon Balls are then gathered as Vegeta makes the wish to revive Tarble. Tarble is brought back, and the two are elated to see each other. You can see Vegeta is completely different in this scenario. Tarble is one of the few people that Vegeta heavily cares about, and the two are glad that things are somewhat back to normal. In the meantime, Goku and Gohan continue their training with the other two. With Ultimate, Vegeta is now the strongest, and due to how potent Ultimate is, he stops pursuing Super Saiyan forms even. It draws out all of his potential, which is better than any multiplier can do. Plus, there's no stamina issues. Sticking with this will be more than enough. Tarble decides to pursue a new idea as well. Instead of going for regular Super Saiyan forms, he decides, why not use his tail to his advantage? He is the only one with a tail, and he wants to see, maybe he can combine Great Ape with something else. It's not necessarily useful now, but with a little bit of ingenuity, he can definitely make it something worthwhile. As for Goku and Gohan, they continue down their normal path of trying to improve Super Saiyan more, trying to go beyond Super Saiyan 2 even. So, what about Cell? Well, eventually he comes to his senses and decides, why not go visit the Kais? He is part Kai after all. If he wants to get stronger, maybe he can try to convince them to train him somehow, despite him already being stronger than them. Shin and Kibito are kinda torn on this, but they're able to quickly see that Cell definitely is not the same as he was before. He is actually genuine about it. He's completely neutral and only focused on improving himself now. He has no ulterior motives or anything. Shin can even read his mind and tell this. And while Cell occasionally goes to the sacred world of Kais to train, he also voyages throughout the universe, seeking more knowledge and power. Occasionally, he does end up on Earth, creating for some awkward reunions with everyone, and they're all able to see his progression. Instead of the same egotistical being he was before, set on destroying everyone and everything, he's a lot more down to earth and insightful than he was. Although they barely have any control, the two Kais within him are actually kinda surprised. Well, at least it all turned out for the better. Life remains like this for a few years. Eventually, Beerus does end up waking up pretty much like normal. But instead of going to Goku first, the person he first seeks out is Cell. Because Cell has connection with Shin, Beerus can find him pretty easily and explain what's going on. He is aware that Cell is the strongest person here after all, and part Saiyan. Not to mention, he's very knowledgeable. Maybe he knows something about the Super Saiyan God. Beerus and Cell end up fighting, but of course Cell ends up losing. Beerus is intrigued though, and Cell as well as the Kais end up leading him to Earth. First off, Vegeta fights him, showing off the power of Ultimate, but surprisingly, it doesn't really do much to Beerus. Tarble then decides to show off his new form, something that he's been working on for a while. He turns into a Great Ape using an artificial moon. Vegeta's already seen this, but this is the first time everyone else is. Although Vegeta's pretty concerned. The last time Tarble did this, he lost control pretty quickly. Tarble then goes Super Saiyan on top of Great Ape, turning into a golden Great Ape. And he ends up losing control like before. He still has issue gaining control over himself. And without that, he can't really use this form to the fullest. I'm sure you guys already know what I'm referring to. But Tarble's not quite there yet. At least he's on the right track though. Tarble's power in Golden Great Ape is pretty amazing. But since he lost control, Beerus is easily able to work around Tarble. I mean, even if Tarble had control, Beerus would still win here. So, he ends up knocking Tarble out, reverting him back to his human form. So much for that transformation. Goku and Gohan have an idea, but they decide against it. What actually is the idea that they're planning? Well, while Vegeta and Cell were fighting Buu, Elder Kai ended up giving a gift to Goku and Gohan. Something that they could have as a last resort in case Vegeta's power wasn't enough to defeat Buu. It's a pair of earrings, and apparently if they put them on, they'll fuse into a much stronger being, although it's a permanent fusion. And even so, it might not work against Beerus, so they saved the Potara earrings for later, keeping it in mind in case they need it. So it seems like they're pretty much out of luck. There's no Super Saiyan God here, but there is one more option of how to figure out where to get one. Like normal, the Dragon Balls are gathered and Shenron is summoned, and everyone finds out about the Super Saiyan God ritual. The good thing is here, they have more than enough Saiyans. There's Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Goten, and Trunks. Plus, Tarble's there now, and there's also Cell who has Saiyan DNA. But since they're not sure Cell will even work there, they decide to bring Tarble in. Not that it really matters too much. So, the ritual works, and Goku's the one to get Super Saiyan God. He ends up fighting Beerus, but surprisingly, even with this brand new power, it's not enough. Beerus is impressed, but Goku can't defeat him at all. But suddenly, during the fight, he's joined by someone else. While Goku and Beerus were fighting, everyone realized that Goku may need help. Thankfully, they still had enough people for a ritual, this time with Cell involved. And Beerus grins as he sees the next person to join the fight. In Super Saiyan God, Gohan joins. And while Beerus did want a one-on-one, this definitely will make things more interesting. The two are impressive individually, but now with two Super Saiyan Gods, Beerus has more than he could want. It's amazing, and he's happy to have it. But even with two of them fighting together, it's still not enough. But Beerus tells him not to worry. He's more than impressed with these people that he's seen on Earth. And not to mention, he has not one, but two Super Saiyan Gods now. This is great. What's better is he has all this great food on Earth that he didn't know about before. He's more than pleased enough. So, everything ends peacefully. Goku goes to train with Beerus later on, while Vegeta stays on Earth, happy with Ultimate. Tarble is set on pursuing his own form instead as well. So those two aren't too concerned on Super Saiyan God. They figure a breakthrough is about to come to them soon, so the two end up training together. As for Gohan, he retains Super Saiyan God, but of course stays on Earth. But he does have a brand new training partner. Cell is definitely intrigued with the power of both Gohan and Goku, although Goku's pretty occupied with Beerus and Cell doesn't want to be stuck in one place. Cell says to Gohan that he may come to visit Earth and train a bit. After all, his only goal is to grow stronger. Plus, with the Kais in him, Cell can now teleport due to having Kai, so he can visit Beerus' planet whenever he wants and then go to Earth whenever he needs, while also being able to go to the sacred world of Kais whenever. This gives him great mobility and makes his schedule very flexible. But since Goku is so preoccupied, and he can't learn too much else from the Kais, Gohan and Cell form somewhat of a rivalry. They train together most of the time. And it's great, Gohan never has to leave Earth, and Cell always has someone to rely on. Pretty weird, right? Gohan and Cell becoming friends? Well, that's the case here. But, as you could tell, there's unique paths for every Saiyan. Tarble is pursuing a brand new Saiyan form, one above even the Super Saiyan forms, relying on the Great Ape transformation. Vegeta, he wants to pursue something else, but he knows that Ultimate is way better than literally any other form, so he sticks with that. Goku wants to surpass Super Saiyan God somehow, as does Gohan. And for Cell, well, he's pleased with anything. He just naturally grows a lot stronger while training. Even if he's capable of these transformations, he doesn't really need them. Everything is going very smoothly so far, but a wrench is about to be thrown in everyone's plans. Eventually, Frieza ends up getting revived. And guess what? King Cold is there as well. If you remember back from a few episodes ago, things went very differently. So now the Frieza Force has two great people to rely on. Frieza's very angry. He never even got to show off his final form to everyone. He wants to watch them feel terror, wanting to enact his revenge. As for King Cold, he doesn't really care as much, but reviving Frieza has been a long time coming. Really, they just did this because they needed the extra manpower. Of course, they all plan on getting revenge, going to Earth, eradicating the Saiyans, and getting their revenge. But before that, they have to train, an idea that disgusts Frieza. King Cold isn't too fond of it either, but he realizes that it's necessary. In their current state, they won't be enough. Instead of just Goku and Vegeta this time, they're concerned about Tarble too. They haven't been able to surveil Earth much, but from what they could tell, there's other strong fighters too, and the ones they knew from before have grown much stronger. So, while they hate the idea, Frieza and King Cold begin their training, ready to grow stronger and kill those pesky Saiyans on Earth. Meanwhile, everyone continues their training, aware that someone summoned Shenron, but very unaware that Frieza's back. Of course, in their training, Frieza would discover a new form of power, that one obviously being his golden form. King Cold noticed this and realized that he has something to work towards too. He may even copy Frieza and use the same golden color that he has. But at the very least, this serves as motivation for him to get stronger too. And the two continue training, working towards this new power. And since Frieza now has a better training partner, one that grows just as strong as him, they're not going to be training for the full 4 months. And with this, the Frieza force descends on Earth earlier than normal. Luckily, there is no shortage of fighters. Really, the only one who'd be off planet is Goku, as well as Cell, who is still a neutral party though. And naturally, the Frieza force is pretty easy to defeat. They were pretty much nothing originally, and here it's even easier. But the real surprise comes when everyone sees who's on the ship. Not only is Frieza there, but King Cold is too. Both have been revived, and they look the same as before. No one's really too concerned though. If they're the same power that they were before, they're not going to really be a challenge at this point. But Frieza and Cold reassure everyone, saying that they have trained. These pesky Earthlings will come to find that they're much stronger than before. But they have news for Frieza and Cold as well. Everyone here is stronger too, not just the Emperor and his father. Frieza steps out of his pod, being one of the first people trying to fight. And what better person to face him than Vegeta? Even in base, Vegeta completely outclasses first form Frieza, causing him to go into his final form. And even when Frieza transforms, base Vegeta is able to keep up still. But the fact that Frieza can even match Vegeta's power at this point shows how much he's grown. Well, there's no point in holding back now. Frieza then transforms into his golden form. But Vegeta isn't really too scared. In response, he powers up too, activating Ultimate. He tells Frieza that fight was a nice warm-up, but now they could finally get serious. The two rush towards each other, clashing. The collision of the two of them creates a massive shockwave, with everyone pretty impressed, except King Cold wants to fight as well. His presence is pretty intimidating for the rest of the fighters, and Gohan's about to step up and face him, but Tarble goes in. King Cold chuckles. This small fry, Vegeta's younger brother? Does he really think he has a chance against the King Cold? Tarble smirks, knowing he has an advantage. In Super Saiyan 2, he faces King Cold, and King Cold wonders why Tarble is so cocky. Sure, he's keeping up with King Cold, but this isn't his full power. Not in the slightest. He reveals to Tarble that he has an evolution in power as well, just like Frieza. They're not too surprised though, so King Cold decides to give them a treat, showing off his brand new power. His ki soars as he begins to transform, his skin now having a golden hue to it, much like Frieza's. He introduces everyone to Gold Cold, kind of a catchy name. Tarble seems shocked for a brief moment, but then goes back to his confident self. Okay, if this is King Cold's ceiling, it shouldn't be too bad. From his pocket, he pulls out a small capsule. King Cold is confused, but Tarble tells him to watch closely. He flings the capsule down, and out of it comes some weird machine. No one is really sure what it is, but Vegeta knows, and of course Bulma does because she made it. Tarble asks someone to activate the machine, so one of the other fighters goes over and presses a button. Immediately, it begins radiating some weird energy towards Tarble. Green rings of energy surround him, with Tarble getting a more serious look. This is a Bloodswave machine, as he begins transforming into a great ape. King Cold just laughs at this. Really? A great ape? King Cold knows that form is way weaker than Super Saiyan. The size doesn't intimidate him at all. But in his great ape form, Tarble looks down at King Cold, grinning once again. A massive golden aura surrounds him as he turns into a golden great ape. Everyone looks on kinda terrified, knowing that the last time Tarble did this, he lost control. But of course, he's been training here, and this time he may be able to pull it off. He starts swinging at King Cold, and King Cold dodges all his attacks. Sure, Tarble is powerful in this form, but it still doesn't seem like it's enough. However, it's clear that Tarble has way more control this time, and the more he fights in this form, the more control he gets. But at some point, his eyes then widen. He looks shocked, and no one knows why. King Cold chuckles. This form must have been too much for him, because after Tarble made that expression, he begins shrinking. Has he lost the transformation? Well, not quite. As Tarble shrinks, he doesn't return to his normal self, no. He retains that same humanoid form from before, but as he begins morphing into that form, he looks much different from before. His hair is longer, his eyes are outlined in red, but the most noticeable change, he's covered in red fur. By gaining control of the Golden Great Ape form, Tarble has become a Super Saiyan 4. And while Vegeta and Tarble don't have God forms, they definitely would have access to God Ki at this point. It's pretty much unavoidable, and as we've seen, just having access to God Ki alone is enough to empower you in your base form, as well as your other forms. So, this isn't your average Super Saiyan 4, it's much more potent than that. Tarble is amazed, but his confidence returns. He's finally achieved his goal. This is what he was aiming for. Both Vegeta and Frieza turn, Shocked to see this new form, Vegeta's proud of his brother, while both Frieza and Cole are confused. With this distraction, Vegeta then attacks Frieza, gaining the upper hand once again, as Tarble then rushes in to attack Cold. Cold defends against Tarble's attacks, shocked to experience this new power. So, the Saiyan harnessed the power of both Great Ape and Super Saiyan. Somehow mutating to whatever this form is, Tarble completely overpowers King Cold now, and lands a punch that sends King Cold flying up into the air. At the same time, Vegeta lands an attack on Frieza that sends Frieza flying. Both Cold and Frieza collide with each other, angrily trying to recollect themselves. The two look at each other and nod, aiming their hands out towards Vegeta and Tarble. They launch a combined attack, as together, Vegeta and Tarble both begin charging a Gallic Gun, launching it. The Brotherhood Gallic Gun overpowers the blast from Cold and Frieza, slowly creeping closer towards them and eventually making contact. With one final push, the two brothers put all of their power into the attack, as King Cold and Frieza are decimated. Out of breath, the brothers power down. Seeing that there's no trace of the tyrants left, they fist bump, with the rest of the fighters celebrating. And this was felt across the universe. Cell notices it from the Supreme Kai's planet, with Goku noticing it from Beerus's planet. They're both amazed and proud. It seems Vegeta and Tarble's training is really paying off. Thankfully, they're able to defend Earth from this threat. But of course, the story doesn't end here. Next up, we have the Universe 6 tournament. As you could probably guess, the team would be very different this time around. Obviously, Goku is still on the team because he is the one with Beerus at this point. He's tasked with recruiting 4 people, so he gets Vegeta, Tarble, Gohan, and Cell to join the team. Cell agrees to this because, well, that's what Cell's like. He just wants a good fight. Even though he's neutral here, he's not really fighting for the benefit of Universe 7. It's more so a selfish desire. But hey, as long as he's helping Universe 7, no one cares. And since everyone has their own method of training now, let's actually rank them and see who's the strongest. So, even though Gohan is training now and has access to God Ki, he may still be the weakest of these 5 because he isn't training as seriously as everyone else or as often. But even if he's the weakest of these 5, he's still stronger than literally anyone else in Universe 7 at this point. So don't underestimate him here. Next would be Goku. Goku would still be pretty strong here and have access to Super Saiyan Blue, but since he doesn't have Vegeta to train with, his training may not be as effective as it once was. Sure, he's still training with Whis, but it's not really the same. And around the same level as him we have Tarble. As I mentioned, even though he only has Super Saiyan 4 and doesn't have a God form, he has God Ki, which does give him a huge boost. Above that is Vegeta, who has Ultimate. And as you could probably guess, Ultimate combined with God Ki is a hell of a drug, alongside the fact that he is a Saiyan, which just makes him stronger by default. And, unsurprisingly, the strongest here is Cell. I mean, that's not really a shocker. He has the same crazy potential that Frieza would have, as well as the potential that Saiyans have, not to mention regeneration. And he is training with the Supreme Kais and occasionally just going around space doing whatever, getting smarter and smarter, possibly even stopping by Beerus's planet at points. He's just in it to have fun, and even so, he remains stronger than everyone else. He could possibly be even stronger if he did take stuff more seriously. But that doesn't matter. The whole point of me power scaling everyone here is because, well, the Universe 6 tournament is pretty much a wash. The first 4 fights are pretty easy, which is to be expected, and no one gets knocked out because Frost Poison is overruled. This means Goku swapped out because he's poisoned by Frost, which means Vegeta's up next and he takes out all the other fighters. And against Hit, he actually does seemingly better this time, although he's still really no match. Hit eliminates Vegeta, with Tarble going up next. It's a similar story. Even with his great power of Super Saiyan 4, Hit's time skip is just unbeatable. As for Gohan, that goes the same too. And that means Cell is up next. Cell is stronger than everyone, and regeneration benefits him, meaning he can last longer in fights. Not to mention he has the abilities of a ton of different fighters, as well as access to magic now, both from his time with Babidi and with the Supreme Kai. So this is more of an even match. Hit tries to use his time abilities against Cell, and Cell knows all about them now after watching the other fights. He feigns weakness at first, which leaves an opening from Hit. All he needed was this small opening. Hit attacks, and immediately, Cell begins ramping up his power, freezing Hit in place with his magic and then stabbing him with his tail. He's not looking to absorb a bunch of energy from Hit, just enough to get more data. Plus, if he did that, he may end up killing Hit. But with a brief poke from his tail, he gets enough of that data that he needed, with a very slight boost in power. This would naturally anger Hit, wondering why Cell did that. Cell tells Hit to pipe down. It wasn't like he was planning to kill him or anything. Quit being such a baby, all he did was stab Hit. And that's all Cell needed. Hit now knows not to underestimate Cell, so he doesn't hold back at all. Cell attacks Hit, and this time, Hit's able to use his time skip to outpace him. But just as he does that, Cell does the same thing, being able to attack Hit by using his own time skip against him. Hit's confused, is this another one of his magic abilities? No, Cell actually absorbed some of Hit's power before, and was able to figure out a way to replicate Hit's abilities, although his time skip isn't too effective yet, but having access to it does give him a huge advantage. He knows exactly how Hit's ability works, so not only can he briefly use a weakened version of it for himself, but he knows exactly how to counter and nullify it. What follows next is a fight that will really anger the Galactic King. Both Hit and Cell use their time abilities, and Cell begins to greatly outpace Hit as he adapts more and more. Simply put, there's no way Hit can win here. Cell was already stronger before, but now Hit has no advantage in terms of techniques either. Cell is learning to use the same time abilities, and learning to read every one of Hit's moves. Cell ends up winning the match, causing Universe 7 to win the whole tournament. Goku's kinda bummed. He never really got to show off his full power. You know what? Whatever. He tells Vegeta and Tarble to watch. Although he's not as strong as he was in canon, he still is very strong because he powers up into Blue Kaioken. He was hoping he'd have a chance to show this off to everyone, but he didn't. They're pretty impressed with it. And Goku feels that if he got to fight, he might have been able to defeat Hit with this technique. Cell knows all about this. The Kaioken. He knows about it, but he never actually thought to use it before. Maybe it's something he should look into. Anywho, what's so important about Goku showing off his power? Well, not only does it give Cell some new info that he could use, but Goku showing off this godly power will have some implications. Specifically, with Zamasu. Naturally, he'd still be looking to steal someone's body. He would see the entire tournament on GodTube. And while all the fighters are impressive, there's only two here that really made a mockery of godly power. One being Gohan, who barely even got to show off, and Goku, who also didn't get to show off, but Zamasu still got to see a brief taste of his power. Not to mention there were those two mortals messing with time. And this gets Zamasu thinking. So he's obviously going to go through with his plan, but whose body will he steal? Well, Cell wouldn't anger him too much because Cell technically is a Supreme Kai. He's kinda iffy on the details, but he knows he's more legitimate than the other two. Gohan was using godly power, but he didn't seem too strong, or at least from what he showed off. Vegeta and Tarble weren't really using godly powers. Sure, Ultimate kinda counts as that, but it's really different from what Goku and Gohan were using. Zamasu would likely still decide to steal Goku's body. Even with Cell being the stronger one, Zamasu does have weird logic as we've seen in the anime. He places gods on a different level than others, and even though Cell technically is in a spot where he isn't really a god but also kind of is, he'd probably show some sort of respect and not steal that body and rather go for the mortal's body, despite the fact that he plans to kill everyone later anyways. So, Goku Black still happens, but Trunks' timeline is going to be very different. Eventually, Trunks escapes and arrives back at Kappa's Corp, but this time he has 3 other people in the time machine that escaped with him. This time around, someone was able to help Trunks buy some time against Black, helping both Bulma and Mai escape as well as Trunks. Everyone is shocked as they see who's in the time machine. All 4 of them are familiar faces. It's Trunks, Bulma, Mai, and Tarble? Okay, they get why future Bulma's there, and even though Mai's a little bit weird, they kinda understand that, but Tarble? How'd he get there? Naturally, Trunks does have some explaining to do. As a brief side note, future Cell in Trunks' timeline is dead. As I mentioned a few parts ago, Trunks would have taken preventative measures for this, defeating the androids and making sure Cell would never happen. So with that, we could fast forward to the Buu saga. A lot of that went normal for Trunks, except before Shin died, Shin did help Trunks find someone. This was the best opportunity for it. Now that he knows about Tarble in the previous timeline, he wanted to see what's up with Tarble here. Shin was able to find the Saiyan and take Trunks to him. And in the future timeline, Tarble would be pretty much the same person that he was in canon. He was never raised by Vegeta, as I did mention in the last few parts. This is the first time we see future Tarble. He has the same story that he did originally. He was sent away to a different planet because he was too weak, and he just grew up there. Of course, Trunks would fill him in on everything that happened. Tarble's pretty saddened to hear about his brother, and Trunks is pretty surprised to see that this Tarble is actually kinda weak. Tarble in the past was much stronger. And in terms of personality, he was completely different. This guy's kinda soft. But it's good that they met. Trunks is a new ally, and this will really help Tarble later on. They briefly do train for a bit, just so Trunks can test his power and show off Super Saiyan. He hopes Tarble can reach a form similar to this soon, and eventually that time does come. When Zamasu and Black attack this timeline, they decide they want to save Earth for last. They're just going to wipe out every other planet first. Wherever there's life, they find it and kill it. This would eventually lead them to Tek, where Tarble lives. The two split up as Zamasu takes on this planet alone. Tarble tries to help some Tek escape, but of course he'd have to watch as most of the planet gets eliminated. And this is more than enough to awaken Tarble's emotions. With what he learned from Trunks about Super Saiyan, combined with the anger boiling within him, Tarble is able to transform into a Super Saiyan. Shockingly, he transforms, and begins trying to fend off Zamasu. Zamasu's surprised. He didn't expect any mortals to be able to fight him here. Too bad Goku Black's off on another planet, because this would have been easier otherwise. And even though Tarble is briefly able to catch Zamasu off guard, of course he's not going to do anything. Zamasu will still be stronger than him, and of course he's immortal. But this is enough to serve as a distraction to allow some people to escape. Out of anger, Tarble drives Zamasu into the ground, pummeling him down and trying to cover him in rocks. He knows he can't win this fight, and all that's on his mind is escaping. With this brief distraction, he rockets away towards his ship. Alongside his wife and a few other Tech-Techs, he's able to escape just as the planet explodes. Zamasu gets up, brushing himself off, curious to see where the other Saiyan went. But just as quickly as this happens, the planet explodes and Zamasu realizes that Saiyan's probably dead. He brushes himself off, teleporting to where Goku Black is. Had Zamasu not been so careless, this would have been the end for Tarble. But thankfully, he was barely able to escape, although most of the Tech-Techs ended up dying. Naturally, he decides to head towards Earth. And guess which planet Goku Black was on? That's right, Earth. He's been terrorizing it for about a year, while Zamasu went around pretty much destroying everything else. Tarble's shocked to see the condition of Earth, but thankfully he's able to find Trunks. Even with his ability to sense energy, he can't find Trunks anywhere, but the Scouter does help. He's able to find everyone underground, joining the Resistance and warning Trunks of Zamasu, while Trunks tells future Tarble about Goku Black. But this does come as a shock. Now they know that there's another enemy, and as Tarble described it, he kinda looked like the guy that brought Trunks to Tarble's planet. It has to be a mistake. There's no way. Is there actually a Supreme Kai attacking their timeline? It was bad enough with Goku Black, but this complicates things even more. Thankfully, they were able to escape, and that leads us to where we were now. So last time we left off, Trunks, Bulma, Mai, and Tarble headed into the past, at least the future versions of them. They explained their whole backstory, and now they need to stop Goku Black. Oh yeah, and since they actually know about Zamasu, they need to stop him too. Alright, that's good, they at least know that maybe in this timeline they gotta watch out for Zamasu here. Whoever that is. Well, Beerus and Whis know, so they get on that right away. Heading over to Universe 10, very angry. His plan is already revealed, so maybe they could stop it before it even happens. Maybe he doesn't even need to die, they could just stop it. Alright, but what about that Goku imposter? There's another Goku running around? Yeah, Goku Black. And he eventually appears not too long after, showing up in the past, blowing up the time machine just because it's a funny prank, and glad to see that everyone's here. Good, he tracked them down. Now he can finally dispose of them, although he does encounter Goku and fights him, which goes pretty much the same way it did normally, with him heading back into the future, and now everyone's pretty much out of luck. They don't know what to do and they need to fix this time machine. But at least this means Trunks, Bulma, Mai, and Tarble could stay here for a bit, catching up with everyone and learning what's happening in this timeline. The fact that there's a future Tarble here too is pretty cool. Like Trunks and Bulma, that was obvious. Mai, a little weird, but I mean, they can kinda get it. Tarble, it's good to see that he and Trunks cross paths, and Tarble's glad to see his past self too, although he is a little disappointed. The two of them are still the same height. Future version of himself is not taller at all. Kinda sucks. He's stuck at this height forever, isn't he? Anyways, at some point, the time machine is fixed, and they all go back to the future, except Bulma and Mai stay back because they're just gonna be in danger, and they kinda need to make space for Goku and Vegeta to get on there, as well as Tarble, so there's gonna be 5 people squished into that one time machine, but it's okay. The good thing is they also still know about Zamasu. They don't know that he's immortal, but they know about him, so they know there's more than just Goku Black. Although, when they do get back, they realize that this isn't going to be as easy as they thought. Goku Black ends up showing off Super Saiyan Rose. Okay, this might be a bit tough, but there still is one trump card that they have. You're probably thinking, they forgot someone in the past, didn't they? No, they didn't. Cell ends up showing up. He doesn't need a time machine. He is part Kai after all. I mean, if you went back and watched the past few parts, which I hope you did because you'd probably be pretty lost otherwise wondering why Cell's here. You'll remember that he does have those Kais within him, so he's able to actually use a time ring, and this is how he's traveling through time. It's better for him too, and much more convenient. He joins the group a bit later on, and with his help, maybe they'll be okay. Plus, at some point, Shin and Gowasu are going to pop up as well. But with all these people here, especially with Cell's power now, they might actually be able to hold off Goku Black. Although, Cell wishes he was there earlier when Goku Black first showed up. This guy is strong, and they could have prevented him from getting this strong. And by now, Zamasu's already revealed himself, asking who Cell is, and Cell just simply explains. He's an artificial being, a mortal, and a god, all in one. Zamasu is angered by this proclamation. This robot thinks he's a god? He's artificially created, he shouldn't even exist. But also, how did he get here in the first place? And Cell simply lifts up his hand, showing off the time ring. He's part Kai and has the 2 within him. He would have never expected a Kai to turn evil though, so this fight should be fun. This only infuriates Zamasu even more. And once they actually figure out that Zamasu is immortal, they realize they probably should seal him away. I mean, Cell could do that pretty easily. And then after that, they just gotta focus on Goku Black and kill him. That'll be no problem at all. But right before Cell's about to do this, Zamasu then does something drastic. Without even consulting Goku Black, he takes the earring he has on and puts it on his other ear, then fusing with Goku Black unexpectedly. Oh great, now the two of them are combined, and a lot stronger than before.
And even with help from someone like Cell, yeah, their power's not going to be enough to contend with this guy. He might even still be immortal, even if he's like half immortal or something. That's still insane. What are they supposed to do against him? I mean, Cell could probably try and seal him away, but he's going to need an opening, and that's really hard given the strength of this guy. He's not letting them get an opening. But Tarble, or at least the present Tarble, he gets a great idea. He knows exactly what to do against this guy. Alright, if those two fuse, maybe they can as well. What? Fuse? How are they supposed to do that? Well, those earrings that he had. Look over there. Shin and Gowasu are here. They have those same earrings. Just take them from those guys and fuse. But who's going to fuse with who? Well, Gowasu warns them. First of all, the fusion's not going to be permanent. Okay, that's a good thing. Well, yeah, maybe it is because that means they're not going to be stuck together forever, but if they use too much power, it's going to shorten the time of the fusion is what he means. So they need someone that's going to work quickly. And sure, they could make an ultra strong fusion like getting Cell and Goku to fuse together. But that would be too risky. What if he uses too much power before they're able to seal away Zamasu? So because of a scenario like that, they think that it's best to keep Cell separate because otherwise, they're going to be wasting their one opportunity and one trump card to actually give Cell an opening to seal away Zamasu. Well, Goku and Vegeta could fuse, but Tarble actually has a pretty good idea. If they just need a distraction, they need a fusion that's strong, but they don't really need to go overkill with it. And let's be honest, if Goku and Vegeta fused here, they might go overkill and just end the fusion even earlier on. They need someone with power, but a little bit more modest power. A fusion of people that'll work well together. Tarble gives one of the earrings to Vegeta, and then he takes one for himself. He asks Vegeta to fuse with him, and Vegeta's actually unsure of it at first, but he realized that this might actually be the best option. It might not be the strongest option, but it definitely is very powerful if the two of them fuse. They don't know what to expect, but they know that together, they'll work pretty well. And Gowasu even theorizes, two brothers fusing together, that could create a really strong fusion. The two of them are not just getting a boost from being rivals, but also from being brothers. It might be the most perfect fusion they could think of besides someone like Zamasu fusing with himself. Goku and Cell go to hold off Zamasu as the two brothers place their earrings on, and mid-fight, a new fighter appears. A fusion of Vegeta and Tarble. Alright, what's his name gonna be? He actually didn't consider this. Tarjita? That sounds kinda gross. And everything else, it sounds like vegetable, because I mean, Vegeta, Tarble, vegetable, that's the whole point of their name, so would his name just be Vegetable? Vitarba? You know what, just for fun, we'll call him Vegetable. Spelled V-E-G-T-A-R-B-L-E. Veg-Tarble. It keeps the vegetable pun, but it's also not just the word vegetable. And this fusion is pretty powerful, utilizing the power of both Super Saiyan 4, creating something completely different, brand new, an incredibly strong form. Zamasu's amazed, the power of these two brothers combined, and with this power not being so high, especially with how well they're maintaining each of their individual forms, this makes the fusion a lot more stable, lasting a lot longer, but also still having the power behind it to pack a punch. And Zamasu begins taking damage that he can't regenerate from. But remember, they're not here to kill Zamasu, they don't even know if that's possible, because he is half immortal. They're just trying to create an opening. Cell is nearby, charging as much power as possible. Well, apparently the guys within him have a technique to seal people, so he might as well try it out, and especially with his great power, this technique will definitely be way more potent and probably will be enough to seal Zamasu. He just needs to buy some time. As the two fusions duel, Cell is eventually charged up, and he signals to the fusion, who charges his ultimate attack, just to distract Zamasu even more and weaken him further. Well, it's kinda strange. The two of them can't make a unique technique because both of them share a lot of techniques. But how about they go with their most iconic attack? The fusion takes on the pose of a Gallic gun, charging up the strongest Gallic gun ever in existence. This is the power of their brotherhood. They launch the attack at Zamasu, and it actually does incinerate half of him. Of course he starts regenerating it, but it keeps him in place. It keeps him stunned for a bit, allowing Cell to have his opening, finally sealing Zamasu away. Crap, he completely forgot that android. He didn't know that android was capable of this. He looks over at him. Cell is smirking as he's performing the technique. And Zamasu also looks back at the fusion, expelling all of his power, and then eventually defusing into Vegeta and Tarble, who look on triumphant as Fusion Zamasu is sealed away by Cell. Cell is tired out from this, but it worked. He used up all of his power for this technique, but he's surprised that he was actually able to pull it off. He didn't really expect that. It was kind of on a whim and he didn't know it was going to work. So he placed a bet on something that he didn't know he could do. Yeah, he did. Well, Gowasu and Shin are kind of pissed that he did that because that could have destroyed them all if it didn't work, but hey, it worked, so they can't really be pissed off. And Vegeta and Tarble got to fuse. Future Tarble watched on too. Damn, that's cool. He wishes his Vegeta was around to do that, but he's glad he at least got to see this Vegeta. And most importantly, this timeline is safe now. And hey, even though he doesn't have Vegeta, he has Trunks, his nephew, who does share a lot of similarities. It's weird to think that things went so differently in that past timeline between him and his brother. But now it's time for everyone to go their separate ways again. With the future timeline safe, All the warriors from the present return home. And now, we could head on to the Tournament of Power. Again, I'm going to kind of breeze through this, just like I was doing with the last arc. So first, some setup. As for Tarble, he's going to continue working with Super Saiyan 4, trying to surpass his brother. Remember, the two of them are great rivals after all. They're going to continue wanting to surpass each other in terms of strength. They want to get as strong as possible. And Tarble does eventually start working on Super Saiyan God forms as well. Maybe at some point in time he can combine them with Super Saiyan 4, but for now, he's got to practice with the Godly Ki first before he tries to combine the two at all. But just imagine how cool that would be. Godly Ki and Super Saiyan 4. That would be pretty awesome. And as they continue training, eventually they have a perfect opportunity to show off their strength. The Tournament of Power. The team this time is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be Goku, Vegeta, Tarble, Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin, Cell, Goten, Trunks, and Tenshinhan. Some of the people stayed the same, but there's also a lot of differences here, such as Goten and Trunks being on the team, and obviously Tarble and Cell being there. So I'm pretty sure all of you are wondering, who's the strongest out of these people so far? The answer should be pretty obvious. It's Cell. Consider all the insane potential he has and everything he's done in the series so far, and the fact that he's continuously been training and such. He definitely would be the strongest of the group. It's kind of unfair, and he recognizes that it's unfair, but hey, they don't mind that it's unfair because they have an incredibly strong rival with them, which is nice. As we head into the Tournament of Power, the team is pretty confident. They are strong after all. And as we've seen in the main story, the Tournament of Power didn't really have too many formidable foes. There were some, but not really that many. And with how strong everyone is in the scenario, they'll be able to handle it pretty well. They'll be fine. But what's the big fight gonna be? Goku probably would want to fight Jiren, but they know the better option to fight Jiren. It's Cell. Strongest on their team, contending with the strongest in Universe 11, possibly the strongest in the multiverse. Will it work? Well, Cell decides to try this out. You gotta remember how crazy overpowered Cell is in terms of potential. Especially in this scenario and with all the great experience he's had so far, he's actually gonna be able to help hold off Jiren for everyone. The rest of them do want to fight Jiren, but they're gonna focus on their own fights. Vegeta and Tarble take on the rest of Universe 11 alone. And not just the Pride Troopers that, let's be honest, no one cares about, but also Toppo and Dispo, the really strong ones. The brothers together actually think that they can take on the entire force of the Pride Troopers besides Jiren. The Pride Troopers aren't sure if they're just being cocky or not, but Vegeta and Tarble decide to prove them wrong. The rest of Universe 7 focuses on everyone else, each picking their own fights, and doing pretty well in the tournament actually. And Cell, he realizes that maybe he might not be strong enough to fight Jiren. He's definitely really powerful, and he probably would be close to Jiren's power, but as Jiren begins to show off more and more strength, Cell realizes that he's going to need a little bit more than what he has right now. So, he can also try and outsmart Jiren too. Besides just Cell's raw strength, he also has a ton of crazy techniques here. All the magic that he has from the Kais and Babidi, but also, he has Hit's time abilities, the ones that he got before from the Universe 6 tournament. He recognizes strength isn't going to be the only thing that helps him here, abilities will as well. And Hit actually watches on as Cell shows off his own technique, utilizing it better than he did. Hit can't believe what he's seeing, but he's actually interested. How is this going to work out? Cell is able to freeze Jiren, not just in time, but also paralyzing him using his Kai magic. Then he does something really strange. He creates a single Cell Jr. The Cell Jr. then spawns a block of Kachin, forming it into a container of sorts. Jiren just looks on confused, trying to break out of the time loop. And he is making progress, but before he can, Cell then takes advantage of the paralysis, using this to seal Jiren away in that Kachin container. It took up all of his energy to do this, but it was worth it, and that Cell Jr. helps him, closing the container off and then flinging it off stage, and just like that, Jiren is knocked out of the ring, essentially guaranteeing victory for Universe 7 because now, the strongest of the fighters are eliminated. Oh yeah, Vegeta and Tarble were able to take on the Pride Troopers together, proving their strength in the fact that they weren't actually just being cocky. This was something they were confident in, and something that they knew would happen. And Universe 7 takes the win. So, we've breezed through the Zamasu arc and also the Tournament of Power. I could go into Moro and such, but like I said, I did want to streamline this ending. But from this part, we could definitely see a lot of changes so far. Cell is becoming more connected with the group at least, which is nice. And more importantly, two very prominent rivalries begin showing. Goku and Cell become closer as rivals. The two of them work well off each other. And as for Vegeta, his main rival is still Tarble. The two are aiming to get stronger and stronger, trying to surpass each other. Tarble always felt that he's been lagging behind his brother, and he's so glad now. Vegeta's acknowledging him more as a warrior, and the two of them are getting stronger together. As they continue training even further, Tarble's really beginning to show off how far his determination goes. He never gave up all this time, and Vegeta admires it. He always knew his brother had it in him, he just needed to draw it out somehow, and over the course of all these years they've spent together, especially on Earth and all, he's glad to say that Tarble is developing into a fine warrior. I mean, it is a reflection on him after all, as the brother, the one raising Tarble too. It's so weird how much their lives have changed. Now they're on Earth, fighting against literal gods, using the power of literal gods. And still, the two brothers are together after all of this. It's nice, and it's nice that the rivalry is flourishing. And with that, we end off this scenario here. So, what did you guys think about this part? I might do it for more scenarios like the ones that are on hiatus. I might like to streamline it to make a finale so it's quick, but also ends the series. It's a nice win-win without dragging out the series, but also still gets it an ending. So, let me know what you guys think. As always, if you like the video, be sure to drop a like. It really helps with the channel, and lets me know that you guys want to see more videos like this. If you haven't already, why not subscribe? As well as hitting the bell icon to be notified about any future uploads on my channel, including more videos like this one. Anyways, thank you all for watching, thanks for supporting the scenario all the way through, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did covering it. I'll see you all in my next video.